Well, it wouldn't be another virtual video chat day unless I was talking to one of my heroes, Sensei Andy Demko, who is the 7th Dan Shihan, member of the United States Aikido Federation Technical Committee, and also the chief instructor of Newcastle Aikikai. Sensei, welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Obviously, we talk a lot. We've got quite a relationship over the last 20 years between our dojos and obviously our lineage. Those out there that are from outside the organization or outside the country, but our chief instructor obviously started Aikido with you in 1970. So obviously, you're very special to us, and just want to thank you for all the teachings you've passed on in my Aikido career as well as prior to that, because it's one of the big reasons we're doing what we do is that we're surrounded by amazing people. So thank you.
Pleasure.
So I want to ask you, actually the first time I met you was in 2000, and it was in Aikido Cincinnati. And I don't remember exactly, you were teaching probably, but I was probably my first or second seminar. So that's how far we go back. And then obviously since then we host you at our school, it's camps, right? It's out of the country and all that good stuff. But after, are you in 55 years right now? Is that what you're?
Yeah, 55.
Wow. After 55 years, what is the biggest thing that you still love about Aikido today, even with today's, situation we're in currently?
Well, I always say this, and I was just actually on a interview for a martial art blog last night, and it was the same question. It's a very relevant question. And I always tell my students, and I say this habitually, that the reason that I love and follow Aikido is because in all this time I've never been bored, because I know that it's an unending, very gratifying study, and that there's always a new venue, there's always a new development. What we did yesterday is yesterday, and what we do today is brand new. There's new creation in it all the time. So I'm immersed in that process of continually evolving in what I think the founder called Teikimusu Aiki, where Aiki fuses from creation and continually creates and expands. So if you're caught up in that, you can never get bored, I can tell you. You don't know, but you don't know. So it keeps you hungry to try and learn as much as you can. And that's what keeps it fresh in my mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. I even think back to just 5 years, the way you were teaching to the way you taught just in February. I mean, you could have taught the same technique, but it's you have 5 more years and we have 5 more years. So we go about the training even differently, and there's something new to take away. If you think about it like that, forget the depth of techniques and aspects and scenarios, just even Ikkyo, it's just like you never stop learning it. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So, what's been the landscape where you guys are in Newcastle with your dojo and Aikido training with, everything that's going on right now?
Well, it's probably not much different than what you're going through and all our Aikido families going through, especially nationwide and perhaps even worldwide. It's been very difficult. It's been challenging. Fortunately, we're back to, in Pennsylvania, some minimal practice, primarily, weapons training, distance training, tai sabaki, entering. I show a lot of where atimi is applicable. It's funny when you get into a situation like this and you have to change the syntax of what you do or the order and sequence. This gives you an opportunity to focus on things that you may take for granted normally and bypass as perhaps secondary to what you're doing, not knowing that it's those little things that mean everything. So this gives us a chance to train in another dimension. And I can tell you, in the long run, we'll all be better off for it in that regards. I hope it all passes soon so that we can all get back to regular practice. We're certainly missing the camaraderie which we have in Aikido, not only in our own dojo, but in all our brother and sister dojos, our summer camps, our winter camps, our regular seminars. But it gives us time to reflect and look forward to the opportunity when we can do it again. They say familiarity breeds contempt, and sometimes when things are always going good and so you're so used to everything, it begins to diminish in value in your mind. But be separated from it for a while or see it from a different venue, then it takes on a whole new meaning. And so I think that's perhaps one of the lessons we're meant to learn through these trials and tribulations.
I was going to ask you, Aikido, just before everything hit with COVID, there was I think a poll done in Europe or something on the average age and tenure of Aikido practitioners. And it wasn't necessarily a 20 to 30-year-old, or even kid. It was, I want to say 45 to 60 was the typical practicing Aikidoka worldwide. And my question to you is, obviously, when you guys were training in the 70s versus today, there's a lot of difference in, the surface and the, some of the falling even, I don't want to say it was tougher and harder back then. You could tell me otherwise, obviously, because you were there and training that way. And it probably was, but what do we need to do to attract, the younger generation to Aikido? What are they missing that they need to know from someone like you that's 55 years in, has a big family of Aikido, have your tenure in your dojo is probably 20, 30 years on your average student. Yes, what do they need to know that they can't read about or they can't see, but they need to hear it today to get them excited to look at Aikido as a possible martial art for them?
Boy, I'll tell you, that's the really a loaded question. And again, I talked about this in the previous interview I did, as far as what changed. Like when I started, I started in the mid-60s and training into the 70s. And that was the era of Steven Seagal, Bruce Lee, Kwai Chang Caine on TV, Kung Fu, I mean, these things. And the people at that time in our generations then were hungry for the aspect of the Eastern thought in regards to our approach to martial arts, perhaps as a way of perhaps learning to be successful at martial arts without becoming or developing a fighting mind. That's what drew me to Aikido. But the consciousness has changed over the last 50 plus years, and things ebb and flow. All I can say is every dojo, I would say, I don't know when our decline actually started number-wise. I would say maybe 15 years. But, when you look at it long-term, like myself, everything sort of runs together, But I would think the decline would probably be in the last 15 years. And then you have your advent of, your mixed martial arts and things of that nature, which are all valid studies. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but I think the consciousness has changed from people looking for more than just the physical aspect. Aikido brings you into more of not only the physical, but the spiritual aspect. So I never looked for the numbers of Aikido to be up with, say, something that's in vogue like BJJ or perhaps like Kung Fu or whatever, whoever has their time, whatever's in vogue. All we can do, in my estimation, is present it the way that we're doing it as professionally as possible and try to attract more students. I mean, I don't know what the magic bullet is in that regard to bring the people in. All we can do is lead by example, and make it available, try to promote. I think there's a lot going on, and I think we will see a resurgence here, just even like from the pandemic that we're experiencing. It's been several months now that we've not been really be able to be active, and people are very down because of it, and understandably so. And what I told the interviewer last night was, if you think back to 1917 and through 1919, when the Spanish flu pandemic devastated the whole world with, I forget how many millions of people dead. In another 5 years after that passed, everything was literally back to normal. So there's people now that don't think anything's ever going to get back to normal because they're just focusing on the present.
Right.
You have to always look to the future in that regard. We're very versatile. We're very resilient as a country. And as a species, we learn people have come back from devastation, world wars, epidemics, pandemics, AIDS. I mean, if you think about it, just keep going in the right direction. And all you can do, like you guys are doing a great job now with stressing the physical fitness aspect and doing things normally that you wouldn't do. You're doing the telecast from the dojos, podcasts or whatever, and it's wonderful. But there's nothing that can take the place of the actual training. And that was one of the other things that because you can only learn something like Aikido through direct transmission. Right. You can get ideas and you can supplement through reading, videos, attending seminars, but you have to have direct transmission to learn.
Yeah, that's a great point. I look at this as an opportunity, actually, believe it or not, because you said some really smart things about how we're able to adapt and be resilient. And to me, that's Aikido training in its core.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
With your partner and your seminar, and you have personalities. And as much as we'd like to say there's no ego, there's ego in human beings. And sometimes it comes out and you have to deal with it. But I look at it as this whole focus on health. Like right now we're dealing with a health issue. And to me, yeah, all martial arts is great for physical health. But how many can honestly tell you that the mental and the spiritual, not religious, but the spiritual aspect of what you get out of Aikido exists in every other art? I don't think it does. So I look at this as an opportunity once we get back into the dojo to focus on Aikido as a wellness opportunity overall, other than physical, social.
That's a good point. That's a good point because it's very relevant right now. And again, those are things you lose sight of. Right. You never think about your health until you lose it. And then you're ill. When you're ill, you can get something and you might be sick for just a small percentage of time. But all you do is focus on that illness. What you need to do if that happens is to focus on how long you are well and how you're going to be well again, so you can induce that state of mind and attract that into your existence. You're going to go in the direction of your dominant thoughts. So the more positive things that you have going your way, the training, like you say, is second to none. It coordinates the mind and the body, the breathing exercises, the very nature of Aikido. And it becomes a metaphor for your life. And I always say, and you probably heard me say it, that you can't hide on the mat. You step on the mat, it's just like you take off all your clothes, so to speak, because you can't hide what you're doing. And your true self comes out on the mat. And that's where we refine each other. We all have the ego. We all have the rough edges. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Polish each other in training, refine ourselves through our training and discipline. That's the beauty of something like Aikido, which is a lifelong study. So that shouldn't be too hard of a sell, really.
I like it. Yeah. I got more for you. We'll be right back after we take a quick commercial break. Okay, we're back with Sensei Andy Demko, and we've been talking about the aspects of Aikido training, how good it is for your health, some of what our dojos are going through with this COVID-19 situation, but it's rare to have a technical committee, Shihan, on the line, so I want to get into actual training with you, if you would.
Sure.
What are things that you're really focusing on, in the last seminars that you were teaching? I know you were at our place in February. What are the things you're focusing on in your teaching lately that's maybe a little different today than 10 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. You're so right that how your perception changes, how your you have to grow into your teaching model, so to speak. But I'm really focusing a lot now on slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast, which means you have to take time with your technique. And even if it's slow motion, when you start out, you need to do that simply so that the muscle memory will develop the quickest that way. But none of us, myself included, for several years, was never open to slowing down. I always thought the faster I went, the better I was. Big misconception.
What did you say about the Yamada Sensei? You said you'd go so fast you'd hope he wouldn't see the mistakes.
Yeah, but they were more evident. You know, and anytime somebody's going too fast when you're teaching and you walk around them, it shows their uncertainty in the technique. But that's part of the training and part of the process. You realize that. That's the beauty about Aikido. It brings on self-knowing and self-knowledge. And so you do learn through the training to refine yourself. That's why it's important to have a good dojo, a good instructor, and a good lineage, you know, that you understand these core principles. But focusing on the basics, in my mind, is the most important thing. And I like to use different sayings. I like to make things relevant to people. And like a lot of times, you know, there's another saying from engineering that oftentimes less is more. And I relate that in training to when you're doing a technique, you have to be very clean and precise. You don't need any frivels. You don't need any fluff. All you need is very serious, basic, strong technique. Again, we have to remember, and I approach Aikido probably quite a bit from the martial aspect, although my training is I can train with any group and so on and give people what they need because we all have different levels of training and understanding. But at the core of my center of teaching and understanding is being able to have functional martial art capability. And in order to do that, you have to stay basic, you have to stay precise. I believe strongly in pretty much a three-legged stool principle of teaching. First of all, establishing your position. Position is absolutely imperative. Position, position, position. It's like real estate, location, 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 right? You have that. Then the second aspect is kazushi, or balance taking. You do that. Now that can also be through a combination of extension and a timi, or just a timi. It's a pad and interrupt. And the third is the application of the technique. So it's position, balance, technique, basically. And to focus on that and to always nail your first movement, to be very cognizant and to basically slow down, both instructor and student. And when we have to develop that patience to slow down. It's very difficult to do. I know it's taken me a lot of years to understand that truly, but those have helped me immensely. And then understanding the position of myself relative to my partner. That is the key to establishing yourself and getting what's called shingaku. Shingaku is the dead side, to where you enter, to where it's very difficult, if not impossible, for your partner to see you, but where you have control. You went from perhaps a compromising position to you compromise them even more, but you establish your positional advantage. Making sense? That's the order and the sequence of doing these things. So if we nail our first movement, and everything else will flow for you. But if you miss the first movement, you're always behind the equation.
Yeah.
So, and that's a matter of slowing down and observation. And again, constantly studying. I mean, I look at, film, DVDs, on YouTube, written material. There's virtually a day that doesn't go by that I don't do something regarding advancing my training aside from our regular training. So the more that you do that, the more that you'll develop and the more enjoyable it becomes. And then once you learn how to take ukimi and it takes a long time just to learn how to practice. That's why I always say Aikido, you picked a very difficult task because you have to learn how to learn. Yeah. And it takes about 5 years to do that. Not too many people are willing to do that today. But I'll tell you what, the dividends are immense because the 5 years will go by anyway.
Right.
You might as well spend it wisely.
I've heard you say that to me. I mean, you said that to me. I've said this. I've had this story probably 20 times, but when I took my Shodan in 04 and you were presiding over the test, you said, congratulations. I think it was two of us, that test. Congratulations. Your Shodan equals serious student. You've now earned the right to start really training, really practicing. I'll never forget that. Yeah. So that's a great point. I think I like what you're talking about with slowing down, because I feel like in my dojo, I'm going to start handing out speeding tickets because
I hear you.
And I look at it like twofold. Like, I totally agree with what you're saying, that it's masking just a little bit of insecurity and trying to rush through it. Maybe I won't be seen or whatever. But I also look at it. I see this at seminars too, and not to get controversial, but like, I see a lot of Nidans up to fourth dans that are really young, energetic, and they're good, but they're just moving too fast, and it wasn't demonstrated that way. So like, I was talking with Josh Layton on this, you probably saw it, and I complimented him because, and you know how good he is and how fun he is to train with. He's one of my favorite people to train with because he forces me to slow down, and I think I go pretty slow. So we really focus on what we saw the teacher do. We're looking at the exact opening. We're and we're just trying to do quality over quantity of just speed, speed reps, if you will. So that's a great point.
Yeah, he presents a good model, and likewise you do also. So you complement each other well. That's why you like working with him.
Yeah,
because you have the same method, and it's very unassuming but very effective. Speed. I always tell my students, speed will come.
Right.
Speed will come. Now, the only thing that I require when you train is to have a consistent movement. Regardless of how slow, it has to be uninterrupted. Fluid. It would be like water flowing.
Right.
You don't stop the flow of the water, even though it's going slow.
Right.
Continual motion is the key. That way, it's very unlikely that you're going to get set up on or countered if you maintain that movement quality. And they'll always be behind the equation on you.
That's it's a lot harder to do than to say it. And I say this as it going from teacher student. I'm sure you saw it, because when we demonstrate, we're trying to stop in certain points to show our feet, our hands.
Oh yeah,
and then we
absolutely.
forget when we practice, and they're watching it and going, "Oh, that I should stop here." No, don't stop.
No,
here.
You're right. Yeah.
So
Make comments on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll show one thing where I always use the two hands, but I'll just show for one hand for some reason. Then if I don't specifically say it, they'll all use the one hand. They're watching. I just didn't explain it properly.
No, I like that too.
Be cognizant of that.
Yeah, and you said this, I think, in February too. I try to remember everything. It's hard. There's been so many classes, so many trainings in year after year. But like your hands, if one's going forward, one's going back. It's not, there's this. I kind of look at it like drawing a bow. So if so those things stuck from last practice in February. And then, it's just as senior students that have been in your class, we see periods where you're focusing. Like I remember there was one I think it was Cincinnati, and then even our dojo, where it was Katate Tori Gakyuhami. You did this series of Sumiyotoshi, Riminage, and then full Riminage, building on the second hand or the dominant hand position for space. So those are some fun classes. And what do we do as fourth and fifth dans? We try to mimic what you do and just extend it to our dojo. So I want to ask you one last thing. What for dojos out there that are going to rebound from this, and you know who they are, and not everybody will, unfortunately. Let's just be real. For whatever reason, but I think the biggest, what I like about your dojo and your people is, it doesn't have to be the biggest dojo, but you have probably one of the biggest tenure. So, we talk about this, attracting the right people to Aikido, not just as many people, because not everybody's a fit. So what do you think has been the biggest success in your school and having an average tenure of 20 plus years? Because that's not common.
No, it's not. It's not. I think the biggest thing, and it always stems from, the people in the dojo, the instructors. You have to affect people. If you touch people in a certain way, and in regards to the conversation I had with the interviewer last night, talking about how do you keep people, you entice them to train, just like with Dennis. When Dennis, your instructor, came in, it was just like off the wall. Somebody said something about somebody's down and why throwing people around. And I mean, he came down and then he was attracted to it. I truly believe that people in Aikido, I think we all resonate to frequencies. We're like huge antennas. And Aikido has a particular frequency. And and I know that the majority of people you meet in Aikido, very few do you ever have an issue with or a problem. Everybody's very kind, very like-minded. They want to learn to protect themselves, but they don't want to become violent. And they share interests, and there's a camaraderie that's there. And that's what I think attracts the people. Then everyone resonates to different frequency. This is our frequency. Now, is it the best? It's the best for us. Just like I don't say Aikido is the best for everyone. It's the best for me. I'll only speak for myself,
Sure.
And so, you're going to be compelled to do to go in the direction of your dominant thought. So it's what you're really looking for in life, which is the end result's going to be what steps you take. So what you do now is going to determine your outcome 5 years from now. So be careful how you spend your time and what you do. So, and again, in a dojo, it becomes almost like, it's not so much a business, although we have our business aspect. Sure. It's a community. Yeah. It becomes a community. And you do very well with that in your school. And Jonathan, and a lot of let's put your class of students, or instructors up and coming. And you're all doing very well at that. So I think Aikido is in really good hands. I'm very pleased overall of the quality of particularly our organization. There's other good organizations, but I'm pleased overall. And I think that we just have to continue to grow and to do it and to inspire people. If you inspire people, they'll train and they'll come train with you. Yeah. It's all about what you attract.
Yep. I actually want to ask you this one last thing, because as you're saying this, it made me think of something else, but it's so interesting. Like, to me, the definition of a really good instructor isn't how good they are or even how many students they have. To me, it's how many black belts have they developed. How many people have made the distance and now are teaching behind them. So, your school is a great example of that, and ours too. We have 15 Udansha. I think 8 are active currently, but those are the measurements. I'm curious your opinion of that, because it's not like this marketer where you can get all these people, even though, you need people to make things go round, or even how talented the instructor is per se, how flashy his Aikido or her Aikido is. To me, it's how good are your people behind you?
Well, that says everything. Yeah. That says everything. And the metric, I think it's a good metric, that you're talking about, as far as if you look at the depth of an organization, that tells the tale. Yeah. That tells the tale. And you just have to, there are times when Aikido and other arts like it flourished. And I think that time will come again, or at least level out. But the important thing is, it's what we want to do. That's what we've chosen to do. So we have to do our best at it and represent it. If we each represent it to the best of our ability, everything will be just fine.
Well, I really want to thank you for spending some time with me today, Sensei. As usual, great to chat with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.